Indiana men's basketball is back, and we are here to preview the 2024-25 season for the 17th ranked Indiana Hoosiers. Alongside Kara Adams, I'm Zion Brown, and this is Before the Basket. How's it going, Kara?
Good. Excited for basketball season to start. It's finally here.
And we saw the first glimpse of the Hoosiers on Sunday. They went to Knoxville and got a 66-62 victory at Tennessee. What stood out to you in that charity exhibition match?
Well, Miles Rice certainly stood out to me. 20 points, 4 assists on the day, and just his ability to move the ball. He pushes the pace a lot, which is something Indiana's talked about that they want to do this season, is really play fast. And just his ability to control the game was on full display. And I think his connection with Malik Renew was also pretty fun to watch. He had all his 4 assists were to Malik. It just kind of felt like they knew where each other was going to be on the court on Sunday.
It certainly did feel like those two really hooked up well. Miles Rice was key down the stretch. He hit a big jump shot, had a big assist to Malik Renew, like you mentioned, and then also hit the game-clinching free throws there in Knoxville. So I was really impressed by the Washington State transfer.
Certainly. He really showed just how much he's grown coming from Washington State to here, and he fits in super well with the team. They really just seem like they're gelling together pretty well.
And now on Friday night, the Hoosiers have their last exhibition. This one is against NAIA Marian. What do you want to see in that matchup, Kara?
I think I want to see them just kind of to continue to build that chemistry on the court, but I also want to see a little more of Luke Goody. He didn't have any points on the board on Sunday, not necessarily surprising. I think once he settles in more, he'll really be able to kind of find his feet and really find his groove with this team. So just kind of, obviously they lacked some three-point shooting, 4 of 19 at Tennessee. To start getting those three-pointers going, just keep taking shots. I think that's going to be important for them.
Three-point shooting obviously going to be huge for this team after being one of the worst shooting teams in the nation last year. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But before we do talk about the rest of the IU season, me and Kara sat down with Marian head coach Pat Knight about his return to Assembly Hall. We now welcome in Marian head coach Pat Knight here to Before the Basket. Pat, how's it going?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Doing well. My first question for you, Coach Knight, is just what has it been like for you these last few months? You took 10 years as a scout away from coaching. Now you're back into coaching. What has this process been like for you?
A lot of work. You know, scouting's pretty much one of the easier jobs you can get. You work maybe 2 hours a day and good travel, you know, and you have to do reports, but now back into coaching, it's 24/7 job. There's always something, always a problem you have to handle. So it's just a lot busier for me now, but I enjoy that. You know, I miss that. I kind of got a little bored with the scouting per se, and now being back, being busy all the time, and I just miss the competition of games and working with players. And so actually for me, it's been a lot of fun, even though I'm way busier than I have been the last 10 years.
To follow up on that, Coach, I want to ask about you taking the job. I know there was kind of a funny story about you not knowing you had to apply for the job. Can you just take me through what that process was like for you and figuring out you wanted this job and how to get it?
Well, the job had been open for 2 or 3 weeks, and I never heard from Steve Downey. And so I just thought they probably wanted to go, somebody younger, had somebody else in mind. And so so I was actually working, I was at the McDonald's All-American game. I was at the Hoop Summit out in Portland. And then I was down in Portsmouth, Virginia for the pre-draft camp for pretty much G League or second round guys. And I actually had a friend call me to ask me if I could help him with the job. And I actually told him, I was like, look, if I talk to him, it's going to be on my behalf because I'm really interested in that job. I'd like to get back into coaching. And so that night, it was like a scene from a movie. Steve actually calls me. It's late at night. I'm at my hotel room down there in Portsmouth. And really, he kind of jumps my ass. I thought you wanted this job. You haven't applied. And I was like, Steve, what are you talking about applying? Back when I was coaching, you'd either call my agent or you'd call me. And he starts laughing. He was like, no, you got it. This is a small school. You have to go online. There's a button you push. You put in your resume. I mean, I haven't had a resume since 1996. And so long story short, my wife, we live back in Las Vegas. I call her up and she finds a template, generic resume deal on the computer. We make the most generic resume you've ever seen. And I had to answer, I think, 5 questions for the school. And we got it in. that weekend, and I think they flew me out Thursday to interview for the job. And the funny thing is, they didn't think I wanted it. And Steve had told like the president and the selection committee that I was his candidate, his number one candidate, wanted the job. Well, my name never came across. So I think they ended up having to interview 4 or 5 people. And then when my name came across, they shut it down. I interviewed and I got the job. But I had no idea. I was just waiting around and thinking they'd contact me. But I learned my lesson that at these smaller schools, if you want the job, you got to go online and apply like everybody else.
Well, kind of moving into that, so now that you have this great job at Marian, what kind of will it be like for you on Friday to return to Assembly Hall and just coach a game in a place that you've spent so much time in?
It'll be strange because it'll be the first time on the opposite bench. One of the strangest was I actually, when I was in high school, was getting recruited by University of Minnesota, and I actually spent the pregame in Minnesota's locker room, the visitors' locker room, with Coach Haskins and the Minnesota players. So that was strange. But now this is even going to be stranger being on the other end, just coaching against, my alma mater. And but for me, it'll be exciting. It's really more or less for my kids because, our first game we play on the 4th. And just, this will be the biggest crowd we play by far. And just the atmosphere, playing in a historic arena, the fans and everything. So I think it just sets us up really well for when we open up on the 4th.
Kind of following up on that, how are you preparing your team to play in such a historic atmosphere with, there will be fans, a big crowd, kind of what's your approach for that?
Well, you can't mimic it. We just talk to them. I can pipe in crowd noise or some stuff like that, but that's not going to, I can just warn them, what it's going to be like and just keep talking to them. But I'll have to keep good tabs on it during the game, use timeouts if I see, them. I'm just worried about the mental aspect, losing their minds, forgetting what we have planned, rushing shots, getting excited, taking bad shots. And so I have no problem calling a timeout and using them all in the first half just to get them calmed down. But I got tough kids, smart kids. So I'm hoping that, they step up and really compete.
I also wanted to ask, just in general, what was it that fully made you want to get back into coaching?
I was pissed how I got fired, to be honest. You can't talk about it when you do get fired, honestly, because we have a bunch of clauses in our contracts. And if you want your money, you pretty much got to shut up and take it. And so it's been 10 years and it kind of galled at me how things ended. We're all promised certain things. They don't come through. There's no patience. And so for me, I was never able to build a program, not at Texas Tech, not at Lamar. Always had some booster get involved. But now don't feel sorry for coaches because we get buyouts. I got paid for, I think, 2 or 3 years each time. So I never feel sorry for coaches. If you have a good agent, which I did, but just from a personal standpoint, it just didn't stick right with me. And so I needed to get out for a while. And so it was great, doing the scouting, but then the competitive juices started happening again. But my problem was I couldn't get back in it because my dad's situation with Alzheimer's for 10 years. And so I started probably thinking about it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I just wasn't in position to be able to do it. Because, if I got into coaching, like I said, it's 24/7. I wouldn't have had the free time I did because the Pacers were unbelievable. Let me make my own schedule, making sure I had always had time every month to come and help out with my dad. And then just really not to be demented, just watching my dad kind of die in front of me. And you realize life is short. And if I'm going to do it, I better do it now. And so those 2 reasons, it's, personal for me was, one, I'm not happy with the way my career ended. And I just want to build my own program. And it gives me one last chance to kind of honor my dad and everything he taught us. So you mix those 2 things together. That's why I was eager to jump back in.
Going off of that, obviously your dad, Bob, a legend in Assembly Hall and in Bloomington. So will there be a bit of an extra emotion for you as the head coach in a game like that on Friday?
Yeah, but it'll be more like celebration, It's actually the 1-year anniversary of his passing. And so it'll be a little strange, but for me, it's more of a celebration because, you know, it's his favorite place where he coached. You got Mike Woodson, one of his all-time favorites, as the head coach. And so to me, it's more of a celebration. So the emotions will be more excitement, having fun, and you know, just enjoying the moment of just being able to go back there and coach. And, you know, I got friends and family that'll be at the game, you know, and so to me, it'll just, the emotions won't be like a sad emotion. It's just going to be very, you know, a very exciting moment for myself and hopefully for my team. And that's what I want them to get out of it, just to really enjoy this, going against one of the best teams in the country, and just enjoy it. You know, as long as you compete, just enjoy it.
Well, Kara, it was really nice to catch up with Coach Knight before Friday's game.
It certainly was. Certainly going to be kind of maybe an emotional evening for him, but certainly a special one for him as well.
Now let's look at the full IU season, what we expect from the Hoosiers this year before they really get into the real games. What are your expectations going into this year? I
think I expect them to just kind of stay a consistent top 25 team. That might seem like large expectations, but when you look at their transfer class, one of the top transfer classes, in the country, they certainly have a lot more depth this season as well. I think some of those new guys, and with Mackenzie and Malik just continuing to grow from last season, it'll help take a lot of pressure off of Trey Galloway, I think, as well, who's really kind of had to play almost every role on this team, it's felt like, in his years here.
It sure has with Trey Galloway, and I'm just interested to see how this team plays offensively. We've heard so much about, you know, the two big style that Mike Woodson has played with his first 3 seasons at IU, but now you got a guy like Miles Rice, you have a Cannon Carlisle, even a Bryson Tucker when he gets healthy. Those players can all kind of do it off the bounce from the perimeter. So I'm really curious to see how they work with the two big men that they still do have in Malik Reneau and Umar Ballo.
Agreed. And I also think I'm expecting them to do pretty well in the Big Ten. And one of the main things for me is the defending Assembly Hall, winning at home. Yeah. We know Mike Woodson talks about that a lot, about defending their turf. So I think, and they struggled some at home last season, but I think with all of these new additions, with this depth on the team, winning at home will be big for them. And
Kara, you touched on the depth as well. Just what do you think it does for this team when you have a guy like Gabe Cupps, who last year had to start, I think, 22 games, and this year is kind of like the third point guard on the team?
Well, it certainly helps for coming off the bench, that's for sure. And a guy like Gabe Cupps is just someone who you can really rely on and trust on. He had to fill huge roles for so early on last season and just being so young, and really had to step up. And he did a great job with it, too. So I think just seeing how he'll continue to grow, Mackenzie will continue to grow. Malik made such a big jump from freshman year to sophomore year, and I imagine he'll make another big jump going into his junior year this year. So just that depth, and once Ja'Kai Newton's back, you mentioned him as healthy. Mike Woodson's talked about how fast he is and his ability just to get around the rim quickly. So I think that depth will be huge for this team.
What do you think would qualify as a successful season for IU this year?
I think winning the Big Ten regular season will be huge for them, and just for Indiana fans will be thrilled. And then making the NCAA tournament, having a good run to the Sweet 16, I think will qualify for a good season.
That is certainly the goal for IU. Mike Woodson talks about that all the time, is winning the Big Ten. He came back to IU to win the Big Ten championship and to win national championships. And if they perform to the way they can, they should be right there this year.
Certainly.
That is all for us today on Before the Basket. Tune in to us on IUSTV all season long for coverage of the Indiana men's basketball team.